Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be taking a look at Sadhguru's book about karma.
Okay.
And specifically, we're going to be looking at this concept of karma yoga and how it impacts our energy body.
Sounds good.
So one of the things that I found really fascinating in reading this book is this idea that the energy body can actually, stay vibrant and youthful throughout our entire lives, unlike, the physical body or even the mental body.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept because we spend so much time, right, trying to keep our physical bodies in shape, keep our minds sharp, but we often overlook the energy body.
Right.
And what Sadhguru is saying is that working with the energy body through this path of karma yoga is absolutely essential. In fact, even more so than the physical and mental levels for moving towards liberation.
Okay, so we're talking about liberation through karma yoga.
Yeah.
But I think for those of us who may not be as familiar with the concept of karma yoga, maybe we can just back up for a second and talk about what karma yoga actually is.
Yeah, so karma yoga is essentially the yoga of action.
Okay.
It's about approaching all actions, everything that we do, even the mundane things, with a certain consciousness and intention.
Okay.
And what Sadhguru argues is that this conscious action actually works on us on multiple levels. So it's not just on the physical level, it's not just on the mental level, but it's also on this energetic level that we're talking about.
So it's kind of like a holistic approach, right? It's not just about, hitting the gym and meditating, but it's also something more than that, something deeper.
Yeah, exactly. And, we're talking about this energy body.
Yeah.
What is this energy body? Is it like some mystical force field?
Right.
I mean, you can think of it as this really vibrant, dynamic force that kind of animates our physical and mental experiences. It's like the very foundation of our being. And here's the really fascinating part. Sadhguru describes it as ageless. It's something that can remain in mint condition if we know how to work with it.
Wow.
And he even compares himself to an energy mechanic.
An energy mechanic.
Yeah, he says his expertise lies in revitalizing people's energy.
Okay, so like a car, right? Like a car needs to have regular maintenance to run smoothly. Our energy body also needs attention.
Exactly.
But how do we become our own, energy mechanics?
Well, Sadhguru points to specific yogic practices, in particular something called Kriyas, as being designed to work directly with this energy body. And one that he highlights is the Shambhavi Mahamudra Kriya.
Okay, Kriyas, Shambhavi Mahamudra, these are terms that, for many of us may sound a bit esoteric. So can you break it down a little bit further, kind of explain, what these practices actually do?
Yeah, so you can think of it this way, right? Every action, every thought, every emotion leaves an energetic imprint on us.
Okay.
These imprints, they kind of accumulate over time and form what you might call karmic residue on our energy bodies.
Oh, okay.
And Kriyas, like the Shambhavi Mahamudra, are designed to cleanse this residue.
So it's like our energy body is holding on to the baggage from, past experiences, and these Kriyas are kind of helping us clear that out.
Precisely. And by clearing out that energetic clutter, it creates the space for transformation, for shifting those ingrained patterns that might be holding us back.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And, I've heard this term burning karma, and I'm wondering, is that the same thing as cleansing this karmic residue?
Burning karma is definitely part of the process, but it's a little bit nuanced.
Okay.
Sadhguru actually cautions against trying to burn away all of our karma.
Really? Why? I would think we would want to get rid of all our karma.
Right, and that's what a lot of people think, like that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
But there's a little bit of a paradox here. And what he suggests is that burning all of our karma could actually make it difficult for our physical and mental bodies to function.
That's interesting. So it's not about total annihilation of karma, but it's more about finding a balance.
Exactly. It's more about refinement, transformation. And he uses the framework of the 8 limbs of yoga, Ashtanga yoga, to kind of explain this process. And what he does is he divides these limbs into what he calls fire aspects and light aspects.
Okay, so we've got 8 limbs, we've got fire, we've got light. Can you unpack those a little bit for us?
Yeah. So you can think of the fire aspects as kind of the purifying practices. So things like moral guidelines, the yamas, physical postures, asanas, those help us kind of burn away the impurities. And then there are these light aspects. So that's like turning inward, pratyahara, and meditation, dhyana, which illuminate our path.
So it's like a two-pronged approach, right? We're not just trying to, clear out the negative stuff, but we're also trying to cultivate positive qualities as well.
Exactly. And this idea of pratyahara, turning inward, I think is particularly relevant today, right? With all the stimulation, the distractions of the modern world.
Yeah.
It's more important than ever to cultivate the ability to really withdraw our senses and find that inner stillness.
Absolutely. I struggle with that all the time. It's so easy to get swept up in everything that's going on around us. Um, but how does this inner work, relate back to the energy body and karma? Is it all just about individual transformation?
It is definitely about personal transformation, but Sadhguru also introduces this idea of sacred spaces and how they can play a role in this process.
Sacred spaces. Okay, so are we talking churches or temples? What do you mean by sacred spaces?
Yeah, so he's specifically mentioning places like the Isa Yoga Center or the Veliangiri Mountains in India, which have been concentrated to create a certain energetic atmosphere.
Okay.
And he says that simply being in these spaces can actually accelerate the cleansing of this karmic residue that we've been talking about.
So it's kind of like an energetic power wash for the soul.
Yeah, you could put it that way. And here's the interesting part. He says that you don't need to believe in anything specific or even see him as a guru to benefit from these spaces.
Oh, wow.
So it's less about faith and more about the energy of the place itself.
Okay.
Exactly. And, he even talks about miracles. He says the real miracle is being able to engage with the world without being touched by it, without letting that kind of external chaos, disturb your inner peace. And he believes these sacred spaces are designed to help us cultivate that kind of detachment.
That's a powerful concept, to be in the world but not of it. But how does this tie back to karma and the energy body?
Well, think of it this way, right? Our karma is constantly influencing our energy body, shaping our experiences.
Okay.
And these sacred spaces can create this supportive environment for that karmic unwinding to happen more efficiently.
Okay. Unwinding, so is karma like a tangled knot that we're trying to unravel, and these spaces can somehow help us, loosen the knots?
That's a good analogy. And Sadhguru even talks about how this karmic unwinding begins even before we're born.
Wait, before we're born, so are we talking about inheriting karma from past lives?
He doesn't explicitly talk about past lives in this book,
Okay.
but he does say that around 40 to 48 days after conception, the karmic fiber starts to tighten around the fetus, almost like a coiled spring.
Wow.
And a child's energy at birth reflects this karmic inheritance.
Okay, so we come into the world with a certain karmic blueprint. But what happens to that karma, as we go through life? Does it just stay the same?
Well, he suggests that throughout our lives, this karmic coil is gradually unwinding, influencing our experiences, shaping who we become.
Okay.
As we get older, the energy body naturally weakens its hold on the physical body, and this eventually leads to death.
So it's like a gradual letting go, kind of a natural process of the energy body, just releasing its grip as that karma runs its course. But I'm curious, what happens if someone dies before their karmic coil has fully unwound, like, say, in an accident or a sudden illness?
That's where things get a little bit more complex.
Okay.
He says that unfinished karma, after an unnatural death, can lead to what we might call a disembodied state.
A ghost.
Exactly.
Okay.
And because they're no longer in a physical body, their karma takes much longer to work out. So there kind of has this holding pattern, unable to move forward.
That's a powerful reminder to address our karma while we're still in a body. It sounds like it's much more efficient that way.
Absolutely.
But what about those who do live long lives?
Yeah.
What happens to their karma? Does it just fade away?
That's where he brings up a really interesting point about memory loss in old age.
Okay.
And he says that modern medicine is so focused on extending lifespan that it often overlooks this karmic element.
So we might be living longer, but maybe not necessarily better.
Right, and he compares it to having a computer with really powerful hardware but no software.
Okay.
Extending lifespan without addressing the karmic dimension can lead to this sense of emptiness, this lack of depth.
It's like we need both, right? We need the hardware of a long life, but we also need the software of, karmic awareness to really thrive.
Exactly. And so he emphasizes the importance of balancing these outer advancements in science and technology with inner work, with practices that address this karmic dimension of our being.
That makes a lot of sense. But when we talk about this inner work, what are we really talking about? Is it just meditation and yoga, or is there something more to it?
Well, he definitely suggests those are valuable tools.
Okay.
But he points to a state of being called Samadhi as a real key to unlocking that true transformation.
Samadhi. That sounds intense. Is that like reaching enlightenment?
Yeah, you could say that. He describes it as a state of equanimous intellect where all distinctions dissolve, the energy body starts to detach from the physical, and the mind becomes like a mirror. It reflects everything without judgment or discrimination.
A mind like a mirror. That's beautiful. But how do you even get to that state? It seems almost unattainable.
It definitely takes practice, dedicated practice. It takes a supportive environment.
Yeah.
And he even talks about the challenges of maintaining samadhi.
Really?
Yeah, even the slightest disturbance can disrupt it.
So it's a very delicate state.
Very delicate. And to kind of illustrate the transformative potential of this state, he uses an interesting analogy, the unburnt pot.
The unburnt pot, okay.
So a burnt pot is fixed in its form, right? It's rigid, unyielding. But an unburnt pot is valuable.
Okay.
It can be molded, it can be reshaped.
Oh, okay, so I see.
He's suggesting that when our energy bodies are less rigid, less bound by these past imprints, we become more fluid, more adaptable, capable of greater transformation.
So it's about finding that balance between stability and flexibility, both in our energy bodies and in our lives.
Exactly.
Okay. And this all ties back to this idea of liberation, right? Of breaking free from these karmic cycles that keep us bound.
Absolutely. But even after achieving liberation, there are still some fascinating challenges to consider.
Challenges even after liberation. Okay, now I'm really intrigued. What could those challenges be?
Well, he talks about the difficulty of retaining the physical body after you've reached enlightenment. It's like the pull towards that boundless state is so strong that it could be hard to stay grounded in the physical form.
So it's like reaching the summit of a mountain, but then having to figure out how to stay there without being swept away by the wind.
Exactly. And he mentions that some yogis have developed techniques to kind of sustain themselves,
Oh, wow.
either through conscious karma or by linking their energy to others.
Wait, so conscious karma, you mean like intentionally creating new karma to stay in a body?
It does seem counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
But it highlights the level of mastery that's involved. And he even shares a personal story, talking about how his own energy body was damaged after consecrating the Dhyanalinga, which is this incredibly powerful energy form.
So even someone like Sadhguru can experience these, energetic challenges.
Yeah, I mean, working with energy at that level is an incredibly delicate process.
Wow. What did he do to recover?
He had to create this kind of life support system by linking his energy to others. So it gives us a glimpse into the complexity of working with these energies at this high level.
This is all so mind-boggling. The more we delve into this world of energy and karma, the more intricate and profound it becomes. But what about energy healing? Does Sadhguru endorse that as a way to kind of address karma?
That's where he actually takes a pretty strong stance. He is actually quite critical of energy healing.
Really? Why is that?
Because he believes that simply alleviating karmic effects without addressing the root cause is ultimately unhelpful.
So it's not enough to just fix the symptoms. We have to go deeper and actually transform the underlying patterns.
Exactly. He argues that healing without transformation is like putting a Band-Aid on a deep wound. It might provide some temporary relief, but it's not really addressing the underlying issue.
So it's like that whack-a-mole analogy, right? You might suppress one symptom, but then another one is just going to pop up somewhere else.
Right. He uses the example of someone who, say, heals our asthma through energy healing, only to have a different ailment manifest later on.
Oh, wow.
Right. And he suggests that suppressing the karmic expression without actually resolving it, it's only delaying the inevitable.
So what's the alternative then? What does he suggest we do instead?
He emphasizes the importance of transcending suffering, not just alleviating pain. He sees pain as this valuable indicator. It's a signal that our system, something is out of balance.
So instead of masking the pain, we should be listening to what it's trying to tell us.
Exactly. And by listening, we can become more aware of the karmic patterns that are actually creating that pain, and then use our awareness to actually transform them.
That's a really empowering perspective. It's not about being victims of our karma, but really becoming active participants in our own evolution. But I'm curious about these stories, that we hear about yogis living for hundreds of years. Is that even possible?
He acknowledges that there are yogis who've mastered technique to extend their lifespans. And in fact, he shares this incredible story about a yogi who was meditating so deeply that he was actually buried by a flood and remained underground for 6 months.
Buried alive for 6 months. How did he survive?
Well, he was in this altered state of consciousness, essentially hibernating, prolonging his life for a very specific purpose. He had unfinished karma that he wanted to resolve, and he didn't want to have to be reborn to deal with it again.
That's some serious dedication, but it sounds like a pretty extreme measure. Are there more accessible ways to kind of work with karma and live more consciously?
Absolutely. And what Sadhguru really emphasizes is the importance of exercising choice in every moment.
Okay.
He reminds us that we're constantly pulled by our tendencies, but we also have this power to make conscious decisions.
So it's about becoming aware of our patterns and then choosing to do something different.
Exactly. It's about moving from these compulsive reactions to conscious actions, from being driven by karma to becoming the drivers of our own lives.
This is all so fascinating. I used to think of karma as this fixed destiny, but it seems like it's much more dynamic and fluid than that.
It is. And understanding the fluidity is key to really unlocking that transformative potential.
This is definitely a lot to digest. It feels like we've covered so much ground, from the energy body and karmic cleansing to these sacred spaces and, the challenges of enlightenment. Where do we even go from here?
Well, Sadhguru does offer some practical advice in what he calls the Satana sections of the book. He talks about specific nighttime exercises for karmic cleansing, and even this idea of experiencing sleep as a mini-death.
Wait, experiencing sleep as a mini-death? That sounds a little intense for a bedtime routine. What's the point of that?
It's not about literally dying, of course,
Okay.
but using sleep as a way to practice letting go, loosening the grip of our attachments, and creating the space for this karmic unwinding to happen more effortlessly.
So it's about using, those nighttime hours as an opportunity for deeper transformation.
Exactly.
But what about, the rest of our lives? How do we bring this awareness of karma and the energy body into our everyday experiences?
That's a great question, and one that we'll continue to explore as we dive deeper into these concepts.
Okay, I'm ready for more. This deep dive has definitely opened my eyes to a whole new dimension of existence. I can't wait to see where we go next.
Seems like you're really starting to get this whole energy body thing.
I'm trying. It's definitely a shift in perspective, thinking about having a whole other body to take care of.
It is. But it's also really empowering, wouldn't you say? When you understand how the energy body works, how it's affected by pretty much everything we do, even think. I mean, that gives you a whole other level of control over your life.
Yeah, that makes sense. We were talking earlier about Sadhguru's views on energy healing and how he seems to warn against just trying to get rid of symptoms without getting to the root of the problem.
Right, exactly. He's all about real, lasting healing that comes from actual transformation, not just like a quick fix.
It's that whole whack-a-mole thing he talks about, right? You get rid of one symptom and something else pops up.
Exactly, and that's why he's so big on understanding the deeper karmic patterns behind the issue. Like what's really causing this in the first place.
And he even said that pain can actually serve a purpose.
Yeah, instead of just avoiding pain at all costs, he's saying look at it as a message, a signal that something's off.
So, instead of reaching for the painkillers right away, we should stop and think, okay, what's this pain trying to tell me?
Exactly. It could be physical, emotional, even energetic, but it's always an indicator, it's telling you something needs attention.
Like a wake-up call.
Yeah, exactly. Pay attention to the wake-up call, get to the root cause instead of just covering things up.
This is giving me a whole new way to think about, dealing with difficult stuff. Not running away, but actually using it to learn and grow.
Exactly. That's where the real growth happens. When you lean into those challenges, use them to break free from those old patterns.
No pain, no gain, right?
Yeah, but in a whole new way, right? It's not about seeking out pain, but about seeing it as a chance to transform.
So less about burning off karma, more about, refining it.
That's it. Refining and transforming it. Use your experiences, all of them, to evolve and grow.
Man, this is really changing how I think about karma. It's not some punishment or reward system. It's like using everything as a chance to learn.
That's the beauty of it, right? It's dynamic, it's empowering, not some preset destiny.
You mentioned Sadhguru talks about the 8 limbs of yoga, how they're part of this process.
Right, we touched on it a bit before, how he splits them into the fire aspects and the light aspects.
Right, fire being the purifying stuff, burning away impurities, and then the light illuminates the path.
Exactly. The fire aspects, you've got your yamas, moral guidelines for how you act in the world, and the yamas, like personal disciplines, building self-awareness.
And asanas, the physical poses, that's part of it too, right?
Yep, that helps purify the body, get you ready for the deeper stuff.
And then we move into the light side.
Right, you start with pranayama, the breathing techniques to regulate energy.
Then there's that pratyahara, turning inward, shutting out the outside world.
Yes, super important, especially these days. It's like hitting pause on all that noise and chaos so you can finally hear yourself think.
Totally get that. But how does all this inner work connect to the energy body and karma? Is it all just individual?
It's definitely about personal transformation, but Sadhguru also talks about these sacred spaces and how they play a role.
Sacred spaces, so like temples, churches, that sort of thing.
Well, he specifically talks about places like the Isha Yoga Center, the Velliyangiri Mountains in India, places that have been energetically consecrated, infused with this energy that supports spiritual growth.
So it's not just about the location itself, it's the energy of the space.
Exactly, and it doesn't even have to be a traditional religious place. It could be nature, like a forest, mountains, or even these centers built specifically for this purpose.
I'm just picturing these places now. Is there something visibly different about them? Or is it more of a feeling?
Sometimes there are, architectural features, symbols, that kind of thing. But often it's more subtle. Yeah, it's the energy. You might feel peace, clarity, a heightened awareness.
So it's like you step into a whole different frequency and it helps you align.
Precisely. And Sadhguru says just being in these spaces can cleanse your energy, release old patterns, even help you connect with a deeper sense of purpose.
Didn't he also mention miracles happening in these places?
He did, but he was quick to point out he doesn't see miracles as supernatural. For him, the real miracle is being able to be in the world, but not get caught up in all the drama and chaos.
It's that inner peace we were talking about.
Exactly. And these sacred spaces can help you build that inner stability, that resilience.
Kind of like those nature retreats, meditation centers people go to recharge and reconnect.
Exactly. It's about taking a break from the everyday demands and getting back in touch with your true self.
So not escaping the world, but learning to navigate it better.
Exactly. And these spaces give you a taste of what's possible, that peace, that clarity that you can then bring back into your everyday life.
This is all so interesting. It really makes you think about how much our environment affects us.
It does. It's something we often don't even consider. We focus on how things look, but what about the energy of the space?
It's like a whole other layer of experience we're just starting to tune into.
Exactly. And the more you become aware of these subtle energies, the more conscious choices you can make about the environments you create for yourself, the spaces you spend time in.
This is amazing. We've uncovered so much about how karma, energy, and even the spaces around us all work together.
And we're not done yet.
Okay, bring on the next layer. What else does Sadhguru say about this intricate dance between karma and the energy body?
Well, he goes into some pretty interesting territory when he talks about the challenges that can come up even after you've reached enlightenment. It might seem counterintuitive, but he says it can actually be hard to maintain your physical body once you've reached that heightened state of consciousness.
Wait, so even after enlightenment, there are still things to work through?
Seems like it. He describes it as this pull toward the boundless state of liberation, and it can make it hard to stay grounded, to stay in your physical form.
So it's like you've climbed Mount Everest, but now you've got to figure out how to stay up there without getting blown off.
Great analogy. And he says some yogis actually have ways to deal with this. They can consciously create new karma to stay grounded, or they can link their energy to others.
Hold on, consciously create new karma. Isn't the goal to get rid of karma?
Yeah, it seems kind of backwards, right? But he says it shows just how much mastery is involved in working with these energies.
So they're using karma as a tool almost to help them stay connected to the physical while still experiencing that expansive state of enlightenment.
Exactly. And get this, he even talks about how his own energy body was damaged after consecrating the Dhyanalinga, which is this crazy, powerful energy form.
Wow, so even someone like Sadhguru can run into these energetic challenges.
It seems that way. Working with energy at that level is a really delicate dance, even for the most accomplished yogis.
So what did he do to recover from that?
He had to create a kind of energetic life support system by linking his energy to others.
Wow.
It's a pretty wild glimpse into the intricacies of working with energy at such a high level and how even the most advanced practices have their complexities.
Definitely makes you think about approaching these things with respect and humility. This whole conversation about energy and karma has been mind-blowing. It says we've been operating on a limited understanding of what's possible this whole time.
Totally a paradigm shift. And as you keep exploring these concepts, there's always more to discover, like peeling back the layers of an onion.
Okay, well, I'm ready for the next layer. What else does Sadhguru have to say about these amazing realms of energy and consciousness? Okay, so here we are, back for the final part of our deep dive into karma, yoga, and the energy body. And wow, it's been quite a journey. I mean, we've covered so much ground, everything from that karmic residue to sacred spaces, even touching on the challenges of enlightenment.
Yeah, it's been pretty amazing, hasn't it? And what's really striking me is how these teachings are really pushing us, to really rethink what it means to be human.
Totally agree. It's not just about, the physical and the mental, it's this whole other energy body thing, right? And how much it impacts our lives.
Because what I find so empowering about Sadhguru's view is he doesn't just say karma is fate, deal with it. He's actually giving us tools, ways to work with our karma and transform it.
Yeah, it's like we're not just along for the ride anymore. We're actually taking the wheel, becoming like skillful navigators of our own lives.
That's a great way to put it. And I think that's one of the biggest things to take away from all this. We've got more power than we think. We're not just victims of circumstance, we're creating our own reality.
So how do we do that, though? How do we actually become those co-creators? What can we actually do to start working with our karma more consciously?
Well, Sadhguru really stresses the importance of just being aware. The more aware you are of your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, the better you can choose the ones that actually lead you where you want to go.
It's like being mindful of what seeds you're planting, right? Knowing those seeds will grow into something in your life.
Precisely. And it's not about being perfect. Nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes. It's about learning from them, using them to grow.
So like we're refining our karmic recipe, right? Trying different ingredients until we get it just right.
I like that. And don't forget, it's not all about your karma. Our actions affect the whole energy field, the collective karma that we're all a part of.
So by making good choices, we're not just helping ourselves, we're contributing to a better world for everyone.
Exactly. It's like a ripple effect. Every kind act, every moment of awareness, every good intention, it all adds up.
That's really hopeful. Even small things can make a difference.
Absolutely. And Sadhguru's point is, it doesn't have to be some big dramatic thing. It's about bringing that consciousness to everything. How you treat others, how you treat your own body, the environment.
So being intentional with every choice we make, big or small.
Right. And trusting that those choices, even the seemingly tiny ones, they matter.
This has been so insightful. I feel like I'm looking at karma in a completely new light now, not as some kind of punishment system, but as this opportunity to grow and evolve.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to explore with these concepts.
Well, I'm definitely feeling inspired to learn more. All these practices Sadhguru talks about, I'm really curious to try them out, see how they can fit into my life.
That's the spirit. Keep learning, keep experimenting, keep expanding that awareness. It's all part of the journey.
Well, on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive. To everyone listening, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you found it as enriching as we have.
And remember, the power to change your life is in your hands. Take that first step today, and you'll be amazed at what unfolds.
That's a wrap on another deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.